Late at night in Portland, Sarah Mitchell, a single mother exhausted after working 2 jobs back-to-back, just wanted one peaceful night of sleep in her freezing house. But close to 2 a.m., frantic knocking shattered the silence. Outside stood a strange old man, trembling, lost, calling her by an unfamiliar name, and nearly collapsing from the cold. Sarah was afraid and hesitant, but she opened the door anyway. No one could have known that her life would completely change the moment she let the old man step inside. By the next morning, his true identity was revealed, leaving everyone stunned. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The wind screamed through the streets of Portland like something alive and angry. Sarah Mitchell felt it cutting through the thin walls of her rental house on Maple Street, felt it in her bones as she collapsed onto the sagging couch at 1:47 a.m. 18 hours. She'd worked 18 straight hours today. Her hands were a mess. Cracked skin, 3 Band-Aids covering cuts from the box cutter at Target, knuckles red and swollen from scrubbing dishes at Denny's. She looked at them in the dim light from the kitchen and wanted to cry. These weren't the hands of a 32-year-old woman. They were the hands of someone twice her age. The thermostat on the wall was broken, had been for 3 weeks. Sarah walked over and jiggled it anyway, hoping for a miracle. Nothing. The house was maybe 50 degrees inside. She could see her breath. In the bedroom, Emma was asleep under every blanket Sarah owned, plus Sarah's winter coat on top. 6 years old and already learning that being cold at night was just normal. That was the part that killed Sarah. Not the cold itself, but what it was teaching her daughter. That struggling was normal. That barely surviving was just how life worked. Sarah opened the refrigerator. 2 eggs, a quarter loaf of bread, milk that would expire tomorrow. That was it. That was everything until Friday when her paycheck hit. 3 more days. On the kitchen table, the electric bill glared at her in red letters. $340, due in 5 days. She had maybe $180 in her account right now. Stop, she whispered to herself. Just stop thinking about it. But she couldn't stop. The thoughts came anyway, the same thoughts that came every night. You're failing her. Emma deserves better than this. What kind of mother can't even keep her kid warm? Sarah walked to Emma's bedroom door and looked in. Her daughter was curled into a tiny ball, her brown hair spread across the pillow, her face peaceful in sleep. On the wall was a drawing Emma had made last week, a stick figure with a cape, and the words "Mommy is superhero" in crooked letters. Sarah kept that drawing in her wallet. On the worst days, the days when she wanted to give up, she'd pull it out and stare at it. She wasn't a superhero. She was just tired. 4 years ago, Emma's father had walked out. Sarah was 5 months pregnant. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "I can't do this. I'm sorry." That was it. No explanation, no goodbye. He'd just vanished, and Sarah had spent 4 years picking up the pieces. She'd tried. God, she'd tried so hard. 2 jobs, sometimes 3. Every dollar counted, every penny planned. But it was never enough. The system was rigged against people like her. Work yourself to death and still end up broke. That was the American dream for people at the bottom. Sarah's feet were swollen. Her work shoes had holes in the soles, and she'd glued them back together 3 times now. Her lower back throbbed with every breath. She needed to sleep, but she was too exhausted to move. She lay down on the couch, still in her Denny's uniform, and closed her eyes. Then came the knocking. Bang, 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 bang. Sarah's eyes flew open. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Bang, bang, bang. "Please!" A voice muffled but desperate. "Please, somebody help me." Sarah sat up, adrenaline flooding her system. Her hands were shaking. In this neighborhood, late-night knocks meant trouble. Drug dealers, drunk men at the wrong house, police asking questions she couldn't afford to answer, social workers who'd take one look at her cold house and her empty fridge and decide Emma needed better care. She crept to the front door, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. Through the peephole, she saw him. An elderly man in his late 70s stood on her porch. His silver hair was soaked with melting snow. He wore a heavy coat hanging open over blue striped pajamas. His face was flushed, his eyes unfocused and desperate. He wasn't wearing shoes, just slippers soaked through and covered in snow. "Please," he called again, his voice cracking. "Margaret, honey, it's so cold. Let Daddy in. I've been walking for so long." Sarah's stomach clenched. He was calling for someone named Margaret. He thought this was someone else's house. "Mommy." Sarah turned Emma stood in the hallway, clutching her stuffed rabbit against her chest, her dark hair stuck up at odd angles. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Baby, go back to bed." "Mommy, who's knocking?" "Just go back to bang, 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 Margaret." The old man's voice rose in panic. "Please, sweetheart, I'm so cold, I just want to come home." Sarah's hand hovered over the deadbolt. Every instinct screamed at her to leave it locked, to call 911 and let them handle it. But she'd seen how cops treated people in her neighborhood. She'd watched them assume the worst, ask questions that felt like accusations, dig into lives that were already barely holding together. And if they came here, if they saw how cold her house was, if they noticed the near-empty fridge, if they saw Emma in her worn-out pajamas sleeping under a pile of blankets, the thought made her blood run cold. Through the peephole, she watched the old man sway on his feet. His lips had a bluish tinge. His fingers clutched the porch railing, knuckles white. Even as she watched, his knees buckled slightly. He was going to collapse, right there on her porch. "Damn it," Sarah whispered. She couldn't leave him out there. Whatever happened, whatever trouble followed, she couldn't live with herself if she let an old man freeze to death on her front porch. She turned the deadbolt and opened the door. The blast of cold air made her gasp. The old man stood there trembling so violently, his whole body shook. Snow had accumulated on his coat and in his hair. Up close, she could see that his face had gone from flush to pale, and his eyes were starting to lose focus. "Sir," Sarah said softly. "Sir, are you okay?" The man's eyes focused on her face. For a moment, clarity flickered in their depths. Then it faded, replaced by confused recognition. "Margaret," he breathed, his voice filled with relief and love. "Oh, honey, I knew you'd let Daddy in. I knew you wouldn't leave me out in the cold." "Sir, I'm not." But the man stumbled forward, and Sarah had to catch him to keep him from falling. His body felt like ice through his coat. She could feel him shaking against her. "Mommy!" Emma's voice rose in alarm. "Is the man sick?" "It's okay, baby." Sarah guided the old man toward the couch. "The man just got lost in the snow. He needs somewhere warm for a little while." The man sank onto the sofa with a grateful sigh. His teeth were chattering so hard she could hear them clicking together. "Thank you, sweetheart," he murmured, his eyes already starting to close. "You're such a good girl, always taking care of your old dad." Sarah grabbed the blanket she'd been sleeping under and draped it over him. Then she hurried to the bedroom to get the extra coat off Emma's bed. Emma would be cold, but she was young and healthy. This man had nothing. "Who is he, Mommy?" Emma whispered, pressing close to Sarah's side. "Why does he think you're his daughter?" "I don't know, baby." Sarah tucked the coat around the old man, who was already drifting into exhausted sleep. "Sometimes when people get very old or very cold, they get confused. He probably has a daughter named Margaret somewhere, and he thought I was her. Is he going to stay here?" "Just for tonight. Just until he warms up and we can figure out where he belongs." But as Sarah ushered Emma back to bed, her hands were shaking. She'd just let a stranger into her home. A confused, possibly mentally ill stranger. And if anyone found out if the wrong person asked the wrong questions, she pushed the thought away and focused on getting Emma settled. "It's okay, sweet girl," Sarah whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "I promise he's safe. He's just a confused old man who got lost." "He called you his daughter," Emma said quietly. "Do you think his real daughter is looking for him?" Sarah's stomach twisted. Of course, someone was looking for him. This man had family somewhere, people who were probably terrified right now, wondering where he'd gone. "I'm sure she is," Sarah said softly, "and tomorrow we'll help him find her." "Okay." Emma nodded and closed her eyes. Sarah went back to the living room. The old man was sound asleep now, his breathing slow and steady. In sleep, with the tension gone from his face, he looked peaceful, gentle, like somebody's beloved grandfather. Sarah sat down on the floor beside the couch, too afraid to leave him alone. She pulled out her phone. 2:43 a.m. She had to be up in 4 hours for her shift at Target. The old man murmured something in his sleep, a name that sounded like Margaret. His hand reached out from under the blanket, grasping at air, searching for someone. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to quiet her racing thoughts. She'd done the right thing. She'd saved a man from freezing to death. Surely that counted for something. But as the wind rattled the loose window panes and the cold seeped deeper into the house, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just opened a door to something far more complicated than a simple act of kindness. Morning light filtered through the newspaper-stuffed windows. Sarah woke with her neck aching from sleeping on the floor. For a moment, she was disoriented. Then she remembered. She sat up quickly and looked at the couch. The old man was still there, thank God. Still breathing. Still peaceful. She checked her phone. 6:15 a.m. She had a text from Target's automated system. Winter storm warning. Store opening delayed until 10:00 a.m. Relief flooded through her. A few extra hours. But that still left the problem of what to do about the man on her couch. In the early morning light, she could see him more clearly. His face was deeply lined but gentle. His silver hair stuck up at odd angles. His hands, folded on top of the blankets, were weathered and spotted with age. Sarah stood up slowly, her joints protesting, and crept toward the kitchen. She jiggled the thermostat again. Nothing. Great. One more thing she couldn't afford to fix. The refrigerator offered even less hope. 2 eggs, some bread, a little butter. That was all she had until Friday. Her stomach twisted. She'd been planning to make scrambled eggs for Emma this morning. But if the old man was hungry... "Mommy!" Sarah turned. Emma stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, her hair a tangled mess. "Good morning, sweet girl. Did you sleep okay?" Emma nodded, but her eyes drifted toward the living room. "Is the man still here?" "Yes, baby. He needed to rest." "What's his name?" Sarah realized she had no idea. She hadn't thought to ask last night, and he'd been too confused to offer. "I don't know yet, but we'll find out when he wakes up." She got Emma dressed quietly, trying not to wake their guest. But as she was pulling a clean shirt over Emma's head, she heard movement in the living room. The old man was awake. Sarah found him sitting up on the sofa, looking around the small house with confusion written across his face. But there was something different about him this morning. His eyes seemed clearer, more focused than they'd been last night. When he saw her, his expression shifted from confusion to embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice rough with sleep but surprisingly steady. I'm not sure how I got here. This isn't my room." Sarah moved closer carefully. "You came to my door last night, sir. You were very cold and confused. You thought I was your daughter." The old man's face crumpled with shame. "Oh no. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have these episodes where I get confused about where I am. Did I frighten you?" "A little," Sarah admitted, "but you seemed harmless. Just lost." "My daughter," he said slowly, as if pulling the words from deep memory. "Margaret. I was trying to find her. I thought..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "I'm sorry. This must have been terrifying for you. Do you remember your name?" He thought for a moment. "Henry. Henry Carter. Mr. Carter, do you know where you live?" "Sunnydale," he said with more confidence. "Sunnydale Senior Living. It's a senior living place. I've been there for 2 years, I'm not sure." Emma appeared in the doorway, watching the scene with wide eyes. Henry's face softened when he saw her. "Good morning," he said gently. "I'm sorry if I scared you last night. Sometimes my brain doesn't work the way it should." "It's okay," Emma said politely. She'd been raised to be polite to adults, even strange ones who appeared in their living room. "Are you feeling better?" "I am. Thank you, young lady." Henry smiled at her, and Sarah could see genuine kindness in his eyes. "You remind me of my granddaughter when she was little. Same sweet face." "You have a granddaughter?" Emma asked, moving a little closer. "What's her name?" Henry's expression clouded slightly. "I'm not sure. I'm sorry. My memory isn't what it used to be, but I know she exists. I remember her laugh." Sarah felt a wave of pity wash over her. This poor man. More clear-headed this morning, but still struggling with gaps in his memory. "Are you hungry?" she heard herself ask. "I was about to make breakfast." "I don't want to be a burden," Henry said quickly. "You've already done so much more than anyone would expect." "It's no burden. Just let me see what I can do." She went to the kitchen and stared at the 2 eggs. 2 eggs for 3 people. She scrambled them carefully, dividing them onto 3 plates in portions so small they were barely worth eating. She toasted the last of the bread and spread it with butter. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. Henry ate slowly, savoring each bite as if it were a feast. When he finished, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his wallet. "Please," he said, opening the wallet with hands that trembled slightly. "Let me pay you for the food and the trouble." Sarah watched as he pulled out crumpled bills, 1s and 5s mixed with receipts and old business cards. Maybe $8 total. This man had almost nothing. "No," she said firmly. "You don't need to pay me. It was just breakfast." "But you've been so kind," he insisted. "I need to do something." "You don't need to do anything except rest." She checked her phone again. 7:30. The store wouldn't open until 10:00, which gave her time. "Mr. Carter, is there someone I can call for you?" "Someone who might be worried about you." Henry frowned, concentrating. "My daughter, Rebecca Carter. But I don't remember her number. There's a card in my wallet, I think." From the facility, Sarah found the card, a business card for Sunnydale Sr., living with an emergency contact number on the back. "I can call them," she said. "They'll know how to reach your daughter." Henry nodded gratefully, but there was sadness in his eyes. "She's going to be so disappointed in me. She worries so much already. And then I go and do something like this." "I'm sure she'll just be relieved you're safe," Sarah said gently. But even as she said it, she felt a strange reluctance. Once she made that call, this would be over. Henry would go back to wherever he came from, and her life would return to its normal grinding routine. For just this morning, having someone else in the house, someone who seemed genuinely kind despite his confusion, had made it feel less empty. "Before I call," Sarah said, "would you like to sit with Emma for a bit? I need to clean up the kitchen." Henry's face brightened. "I'd like that very much." As Sarah washed the few dishes they had, she watched through the doorway. Emma showed Henry her drawings from school, and he examined each one with genuine interest, praising her use of color and asking questions about the stories behind the pictures. There was something beautiful about the scene, something that made Sarah's chest ache with a longing she couldn't quite name. But she had to make the call. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card. "Sunnydale Senior Living, this is Amanda speaking. How may I help you?" "Hi," Sarah said, her voice quiet. "I'm calling about one of your residents, Henry Carter. He's here at my house. He got lost last night." There was a sharp intake of breath. "Mr. Carter. Oh, thank God. We've been searching for him since yesterday evening. Is he all right?" "He's fine, just a little confused, but he seems okay this morning." "What's your address? I'll notify his emergency contact immediately." Sarah gave the address, her stomach tightening with anxiety about what would come next. "His daughter will want to come right away," Amanda said. "Please keep him there and keep him safe. This is wonderful news. We were all so worried." After she hung up, Sarah stood in the kitchen for a moment staring at her phone. Henry's daughter was coming. This strange, brief interlude was about to end. She walked back into the living room. "Mr. Carter, I called Sunnydale. They're contacting your daughter. She'll be here soon." Henry nodded, a mix of relief and sadness crossing his face. Then he looked at Emma. "Well, I suppose I should finish telling you about my wife's famous cookies before I go." And for the next half hour, while they waited, Henry told stories about his late wife and her enormous chocolate chip cookies, about his daughter when she was young, about a life lived fully, even if parts of it were now fading from his memory. Sarah sat nearby and listened, and despite all her fears about what would happen next, she was grateful for this morning, grateful that she'd opened her door, grateful for the reminder that kindness still existed in the world, even if that kindness was about to complicate her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The knock came at 8:47 a.m. Sarah had been expecting it, dreading it, and yet somehow it still made her jump. She looked through the peephole and felt her stomach drop. A woman in her early 40s stood on the porch. Dark slacks, cream-colored blouse, a wool coat that probably cost more than Sarah made in a month. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Her face was tight with worry, her eyes red-rimmed. Behind her was Amanda from Sunnydale, recognizable from her voice. And behind them, parked at the curb, was a black Cadillac Escalade that looked like it had just rolled off a showroom floor. Sarah opened the door. The woman's eyes immediately went past her, searching, desperate. "Dad." Henry looked up from where he sat on the couch with Emma, his face transformed with recognition and joy. "Rebecca, sweetheart." Rebecca rushed into the house and dropped to her knees in front of her father, taking his hands in hers. "Dad, oh my God, are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, honey. This nice young woman took care of me. Her name is—" He paused, momentarily confused. "Sarah," Sarah supplied quietly. "Sarah Mitchell." Rebecca looked up at her, and Sarah saw tears streaming down the woman's cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much for keeping him safe." "Of course. He came to my door. I couldn't just leave him out in the cold." Amanda from Sunnydale stepped forward with a professional smile. "Miss Mitchell, we're so grateful. I'll need to file an incident report. Just a few questions about what happened." Over the next 20 minutes, Sarah explained the events of the previous night while Amanda took notes. Rebecca sat on the sofa with Henry holding his hand tightly as if afraid he might disappear again if she let go. And you didn't call us last night because… Amanda asked, her tone neutral, but the question heavy with implication. Sarah felt heat creep up her neck. He was so cold. I was worried he'd get sick if I made him go back out. And it was late. I planned to call in the morning. You should have called immediately, Amanda said, though not unkindly. When residents go missing, every minute counts. We had the police searching. Miss Carter has been up all night. I know, Sarah said quietly. I'm sorry. I should have called. I wanted to make sure he was warm first. Rebecca stood up from the sofa. Amanda, could you give us a minute, please? I'd like to talk to Miss Mitchell privately. After Amanda stepped out onto the front porch with Henry, Rebecca turned to Sarah. Her expression was hard to read. Not angry exactly, but searching. You took care of him, Rebecca said. Yes, ma'am. You gave him food and a place to sleep. Yes. Did you ask him for money? Sarah's voice came out sharper than she intended. No, I would never. He tried to pay me, but I wouldn't take it. Rebecca looked around the small house, at the newspaper-stuffed windows, at the thin furniture, at Emma watching nervously from the hallway. Sarah saw the woman taking it all in, making calculations and judgments. You're struggling, Rebecca said. It wasn't a question. Sarah lifted her chin. We're doing fine. You work 2 jobs. Rebecca gestured toward the door where Sarah's uniforms hung. Target and Denny's. That's a hard life. 2 jobs, 1 kid, no partner from what I can see. We manage. I'm not criticizing, Rebecca said quickly. I'm trying to understand. You're barely making ends meet, and you took in a stranger. You fed him. You kept him warm. You didn't ask for anything in return. She paused. Why? Sarah met Rebecca's gaze. Because he needed help. Because I'd want someone to do the same for my mother if she were lost somewhere. Rebecca studied her for a long moment. Then she pulled a business card from her purse. This is my contact information, my direct line. I'd like to stay in touch if that's all right. Sarah took the card suspiciously. Why? Because you did something extraordinary. And I don't forget people who helped my father. Rebecca glanced toward the porch where Henry was talking softly with Amanda. He's all I have left. My mother died 6 years ago. I'm an only child. He's everything to me. I understand, Sarah said softly. Do you? Rebecca's voice broke slightly. Because I was terrified last night. I thought he was dead in a ditch somewhere. I thought I'd lost the last person in the world who really knows me. She pressed the business card into Sarah's hand. Please take this. And if you or your daughter ever need anything, you call me. I mean that. Miss Carter, I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's gratitude. There's a difference. Before Sarah could respond, Henry appeared in the doorway with Amanda. He was wearing his coat, now ready to leave. I need to say goodbye to my friends, Henry said, moving past the adults to kneel down in front of Emma. Thank you for being so kind to me, he said gently. I won't forget you. Even when I forget other things, I'll remember the little girl who showed me her drawings. Will you come back and visit us? Emma asked, her voice small. Henry glanced at his daughter, who nodded. I'd like that very much, he said, if your mother says it's okay. All eyes turned to Sarah. She felt trapped by the weight of expectation, by the hope in her daughter's face, by the gratitude in Rebecca's eyes. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, you can visit. Henry's face lit up with genuine joy. He hugged Emma gently, then stood and offered Sarah his hand. Thank you, he said simply, for everything. As they left, Rebecca paused on the front porch. I'll call you, she said to Sarah. I promise. Sarah watched from her doorway as they helped Henry into the Escalade. The street was still covered in snow from last night's storm, and the morning sun made everything glitter. It should have felt like an ending. The old man rescued, the crisis resolved, everything returning to normal. But as the car pulled away and Sarah closed the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. That opening her door last night had set something in motion that wouldn't be easily stopped. She looked at the business card in her hand. Rebecca Carter, CEO, Carter Holdings Real Estate Investment CEO. Henry's daughter was a CEO, which meant money, success, a world completely different from Sarah's. Sarah tucked the card into her pocket and tried not to think about it. Rich people didn't stay in touch with poor people. Rebecca would go back to her life. Henry would be safe at Sunnydale, and everything would return to normal. But as she got ready for her shift at Target, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that normal had just shifted somehow. That opening her door last night had changed something fundamental. She just didn't know yet whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. 3 days passed. Sarah didn't hear anything from Rebecca, which was fine. Expected even. Rich people made promises they didn't keep all the time. She went back to her routine. Target in the mornings, Denny's in the evenings, Emma staying with Mrs. Patterson next door for $5 an hour that Sarah could barely afford. The bills kept coming. The fridge stayed empty. The heater stayed broken. Everything was back to normal. Except Sarah kept thinking about that morning, about Henry's gentle smile, about Rebecca's tears, about the way Emma had lit up when Henry looked at her drawings, about what it had felt like to not be alone for a few hours. On Wednesday afternoon, Sarah was restocking shelves at Target when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers usually meant debt collectors or scammers, but something made her pick up. Hello, Sarah Mitchell. A woman's voice familiar? Yes, this is Rebecca Carter. We met a few days ago when… I remember, Sarah said quickly. Is Mr. Carter okay? He's fine. Actually, he's been asking about you and Emma every day. Rebecca paused. Sarah, I was wondering if you might have time to meet with me. Tomorrow afternoon, if possible. Sarah's heart started racing. I work tomorrow. Both jobs. What time do you finish at Target? 2 p.m. Perfect. Could you meet me at 3? I'll text you the address. It's important, Sarah. I promise it's worth your time. After she hung up, Sarah stared at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to. The address Rebecca had texted led to a modern office building in downtown Portland that looked like it cost more to build than Sarah would make in 10 lifetimes. The lobby had marble floors and enormous windows that let in floods of natural light. Sarah felt severely underdressed in her Target polo and worn jeans. She'd considered going home to change, but didn't have anything better to wear anyway, and she didn't want to risk being late. The receptionist directed her to the 6th floor. When the elevator doors opened, Sarah found herself in a sleek office space with Carter Holdings displayed in brushed steel letters on the wall. You must be Sarah. A young woman with a friendly smile greeted her. Miss Carter is expecting you. Right this way. Rebecca's office was corner-facing with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city. The furniture was modern and expensive-looking, but there were personal touches too. Photos of Henry on her desk. A child's drawing framed on the wall. Rebecca stood up when Sarah entered, coming around the desk to shake her hand warmly. Thank you so much for coming. Please sit down. Can I get you anything, coffee, water? I'm fine, thank you. Sarah perched on the edge of one of the leather chairs, her hands folded nervously in her lap. Rebecca sat down across from her, and her expression turned serious. Sarah, I asked you here because I have a proposition for you. But before I make it, I need to know, are you happy with your current employment situation? The question was so direct, it caught Sarah off guard. I have 2 jobs. They pay the bills, mostly. That's not what I asked. Sarah met Rebecca's gaze. Something about the woman's directness demanded honesty in return. No, she said. I'm not happy. I'm exhausted all the time. I barely see my daughter. I can't afford to fix the heater in my house. But I don't have a lot of options. Rebecca nodded as if she'd expected that answer. What's your education background? High school diploma, some community college, but I had to drop out when I got pregnant with Emma. And you've been working retail and food service since then? Yes, ma'am. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, studying Sarah thoughtfully. I've been thinking about you ever since I picked up my father. About what kind of person takes in a confused stranger at 2 in the morning? What kind of person shares her last eggs with someone she doesn't know? What kind of person puts compassion ahead of self-protection? I just did what anyone would do, Sarah said quietly. No, you didn't. Most people would have called the police and closed the door. You took a risk. You showed character. Rebecca pulled a folder from her desk. I need people with character, Sarah. I can teach skills. I can't teach integrity. Sarah's heart started pounding. Miss Carter, I don't understand. I'm offering you a job as a property coordinator in our real estate division. The position pays $42,000 a year to start with full benefits. Health insurance, dental vision, paid time off. Normal business hours 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Sarah couldn't breathe. $42,000 was more than she made at both her current jobs combined. You'd be working with our property management team, Rebecca continued, helping coordinate projects, managing schedules, communicating with clients and tenants. It's entry level, but there's significant room for advancement, and we'd provide training for everything you need to learn. And Miss Carter, I appreciate this, but I don't have any experience in… You run a household on poverty wages while working 2 jobs and raising a child alone, Rebecca interrupted. If you can do that, you can learn office management. The question is, do you want to? Did she want to? It was like asking if she wanted to breathe, but suspicion crept in. Why? Sarah asked. Why would you do this for me? Is it because of your father? Partly, Rebecca admitted. You helped him when you had every reason not to. That matters to me. But it's also because I believe you have potential. I saw how you handled a crisis situation. I saw your problem-solving skills. I saw your compassion balanced with practicality. Those are valuable traits. But I could fail. I could be terrible at it. You could, Rebecca agreed. And we have a 6-month probation period. If it's not working out, we part ways. No hard feelings. She leaned forward. But Sarah, I don't think you will fail. And I think you need this chance. Sarah's mind raced. $42,000, health insurance, normal hours that would let her actually see Emma, be there when she got home from school, help with homework, make dinner together. I need to think about it, she said. Of course, take the weekend. But Sarah, Rebecca's voice softened. Sometimes opportunities come disguised as scary choices. Sometimes the thing that terrifies us most is exactly what we need. That night after Emma was asleep, Sarah sat on her couch staring at nothing. She'd called Mrs. Patterson to watch Emma for an extra hour, spent $3 on a cup of tea at a coffee shop she couldn't afford just to sit and think. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. But what if it was real? What if she was about to turn down a chance to give Emma a better life because she was too scared to try? She pulled out her phone and called her friend Lisa from Denny's. Lisa answered on the second ring. Hey, what's up? I need advice, Sarah said. That CEO lady whose father I helped, she offered me a job, a real job, with benefits and everything. That's amazing. You're taking it right. I don't know. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? Sarah, listen to me. I've worked with you for 2 years. You're the hardest worker I've ever seen. You're smart, you're reliable, and you care about doing things right. If she's offering you this job, it's because she sees what I see. Take it. But what if? No what ifs. Take the job. Give your kid a better life. Give yourself a better life. You deserve this. After she hung up, Sarah sat for a few more minutes watching people hurry past the coffee shop window. Business people in nice clothes heading to jobs they probably took for granted. Maybe it was time to take a leap. Maybe it was time to be brave. She pulled out her phone and texted Rebecca before she could change her mind. I accept. Thank you for believing in me. The response came back almost immediately. Welcome to the team. Start Monday. Come to the office at 9 a.m. We'll get you set up. I'm so proud of you, Sarah. Sarah took a deep breath and let herself feel something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Monday morning, Sarah stood outside Carter Holdings at 8:45 a.m., her hands shaking. She was wearing the only professional clothes she owned, a white blouse she'd bought at Goodwill for $4 and black pants that were a little too tight. Emma had helped her pick them out, insisting that Mommy looked like a real businesswoman. Sarah had dropped Emma off at school for the first time in months. Usually, Mrs. Patterson watched her in the mornings. But now, Sarah's hours lined up perfectly. Drop off at 8:30, pickup at 5:00, like a normal mom. She took a deep breath and walked into the building. Rebecca met her in the lobby with a warm smile. Good morning. Ready for your first day? I think so. I'm nervous. That's normal. Come on, I'll show you around. The next few hours were a blur. Rebecca introduced her to the team. James, her direct supervisor, was a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a patient demeanor. Lisa, not her friend from Denny's, but a different Lisa, was the senior coordinator who'd be training her. They gave her a desk, a computer, business cards with her name on them. Sarah Mitchell, property coordinator, Carter Holdings. Sarah stared at the cards and felt tears prick her eyes. She had business cards with her name on them. Okay, James said, settling into a chair beside her desk. Let's start with the basics. This is our property management software. It looks complicated, but I promise it's not as bad as it seems. For the next 3 hours, James walked her through the system. How to input tenant information, how to track maintenance requests, how to schedule appointments, how to communicate with clients. Sarah's head was spinning. She took notes frantically, trying to capture everything. Hey, James said gently, breathe. You don't have to memorize all of this today. It's going to take a few weeks to get comfortable. That's okay. What if I mess up? Then we fix it. Everyone messes up. It's part of learning. At lunch, Rebecca took her to the break room. How's it going? It's a lot, Sarah admitted, but I'm learning. Good. Rebecca poured them both coffee. Listen, I wanted to let you know that Dad's been asking about Emma. He wants to know if he can visit this weekend. Would that be all right? Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest. Emma would love that. Perfect. I'll bring him by Sunday afternoon if that works. And I'll bring dinner. I owe you about 1,000 meals for taking care of him. You don't owe me anything. I disagree, Rebecca smiled. See you Sunday. The rest of the week passed in a blur of learning and mistakes and small victories. Sarah messed up a client email on Tuesday and spent an hour fixing it. She accidentally deleted a file on Wednesday and had to ask IT to restore it. But she also successfully coordinated her first property inspection on Thursday, and James told her she'd done a great job. By Friday afternoon, Sarah's brain felt like mush, but it was a good kind of tired. Not the bone-deep exhaustion of physical labor, but the mental fatigue of learning something new. She picked up Emma from school and took her to the grocery store. For the first time in months, she didn't have to count every item. She bought fresh vegetables and fruit, and even a gallon of good ice cream. "Mommy, why are we getting so much food?" Emma asked, watching the cart fill up. "Because we can, baby," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "Because we can." Sunday afternoon arrived with a knock at the front door. Sarah opened it to find Henry and Rebecca standing on her porch. Henry was carrying a large box. "Mr. Henry." Emma launched herself at him, and he caught her with a laugh. "There's my favorite artist. I brought you something." He opened the box to reveal an enormous collection of art supplies. Colored pencils, markers, paints, sketch pads, everything a budding artist could want. "For me." Emma's eyes went huge. "Really? Really and truly?" Rebecca had brought lasagna salad and fresh bread from an Italian restaurant. They set everything out on Sarah's small kitchen table, and for the first time the house felt full of warmth and laughter instead of cold and worry. "Tell me about your first week," Rebecca said as they ate. "How was it?" "Hard," Sarah admitted, "but good. Your team has been really patient with me." "That's what I like to hear. And James said you did excellent work on the property inspection." Sarah felt a flush of pride. "He told you that?" "Of course. I check in with all my managers about new hires." Rebecca smiled. "You're doing well, Sarah. Keep it up." After dinner, while Emma played with Henry in the living room, Rebecca helped Sarah clean up in the kitchen. "Can I ask you something?" Rebecca said as she dried a plate. "Why did you really take him in that night? I know you said it was the right thing to do, but there has to be more to it than that." Sarah thought about that as she washed another dish. "My mother died when I was 19, right before Emma was born. I was alone and scared, and I kept thinking about how she'd raised me to help people, to be kind even when it was inconvenient." She paused, her hands still in the soapy water. "When I saw your father on that porch, cold and confused, I thought about what I'd want someone to do for my mom if she'd been lost like that, and I couldn't live with myself if I didn't at least try to help." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "Your mother raised you well." "She tried. I just hope I'm doing the same for Emma." "You are," Rebecca said firmly. "I can see it in how she treats Dad. She's a kind child, compassionate. That comes from you." From the living room came the sound of Henry's voice telling a story, and Emma's delighted laughter in response. Sarah felt her chest tighten with emotion. This was what she'd been working for all these years. Not just survival, but moments like this. Warmth and laughter and connection. "Thank you," she said to Rebecca, "for the job, for believing in me, for everything." "Thank you," Rebecca replied, "for reminding me that kindness still exists, and for giving my father something precious, people who see him as a person, not just a confused old man." As they left that evening, Henry hugged Emma tightly. "Same time next week?" he asked hopefully. "Same time next week," Sarah confirmed, and as she closed the door behind them, Sarah realized something had fundamentally shifted. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was building something, a life, a future, a family however unconventional it might be, all because she'd opened a door at 2 a.m. and chosen kindness over fear. 6 months passed like pages turning in a book Sarah never thought she'd get to read. Every morning she woke up in a house that was warm. Every morning she made breakfast for Emma without counting eggs. Every morning she dropped her daughter off at school and drove to an office where people respected her, valued her, treated her like she mattered. It still felt like a dream sometimes. Sarah threw herself into her work with an intensity that surprised even her. She arrived at the office at 8:30, a full half hour before she needed to be there. She stayed until 5:30, making sure every task was completed, every email answered, every detail handled. James noticed, "You know, you don't have to work overtime, right? We pay you for 40 hours a week." "I know," Sarah said. "I just want to make sure I'm doing everything right." "You are. More than right. You're exceeding expectations." But Sarah couldn't shake the fear that one mistake would cost her everything, that she'd wake up one day and discover this was all temporary, that people like her didn't get to keep good things. Lisa, the senior coordinator who'd been training her, pulled her aside one afternoon in March. "Sarah, can I talk to you for a minute?" Sarah's stomach dropped. "Here it comes. They're going to tell me I'm not working out." "Sure," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. They went to the break room. Lisa poured them both coffee and sat down across from her. "I've been watching you these past 6 months," Lisa said. "And I need to tell you something." Sarah braced herself. "You're one of the best coordinators I've ever trained, maybe the best." Sarah blinked. "What?" "I'm serious. You're detail-oriented. You're organized. You communicate well with clients. You care about getting things right." Lisa leaned forward. "But you also need to breathe, Sarah. You work like you're afraid someone's going to take this job away from you." I don't want to mess up." "Everyone messes up. That's part of being human." Lisa smiled. "You're allowed to relax a little. You've earned this job. You've proven yourself 10 times over." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just promise me you'll stop working like you're on probation. You're part of the team now. For real." That night, Sarah told Emma about the conversation over dinner. "Mrs. Lisa said I'm doing a good job," she said, serving Emma a second helping of spaghetti. They could afford seconds now. They could afford lots of things. "Of course you are, Mommy," Emma said matter-of-factly. "You're the best at everything." Sarah laughed. "I'm not the best at everything, baby." "You are to me." Sarah's chest tightened with emotion. This was why she worked so hard, not for herself, but for Emma. To give her daughter a life where she never had to worry about being cold, or hungry, or afraid. The Sunday visits with Henry and Rebecca had become a sacred ritual. Every week, without fail, they came over. Sometimes they brought dinner. Sometimes they all cooked together. Sometimes they just sat and talked while Emma showed Henry her latest drawings or read him stories from school. Henry's memory had gotten worse over the months. Some days he didn't remember Sarah's name. Some days he thought Emma was his granddaughter. Some days he got confused about where he was or what year it was. But he always knew he was safe. He always knew he was loved. "Tell me about your wife again, Mr. Henry," Emma would say, curled up next to him on the couch. And Henry would smile, his eyes distant but warm. "Her name was Margaret. She made the best chocolate chip cookies in the whole world. Big as your hand, soft in the middle, crispy on the edges." He'd gesture with his hand, showing the size. "She'd bake them every Sunday, and the whole house would smell like heaven." "What did she look like?" "Like sunshine," Henry would say. "She had blonde hair that curled at the ends and eyes that crinkled when she smiled. And she smiled all the time. Even when things were hard, even when we didn't have much money, she'd smile and say, 'We have each other, Henry. That's all we need.'" Sarah would watch these exchanges from the kitchen, her heart both full and breaking. Henry had lost so much: his wife, his memory, his independence. But in these moments with Emma beside him, he got something back. A connection, a purpose, a reminder that he still mattered. Rebecca saw it too. One Sunday evening, after Henry had fallen asleep on the couch and Emma was doing homework in her room, Rebecca and Sarah sat on the front porch with cups of tea. "He's different with you and Emma," Rebecca said quietly. "Calmer, more present." "He's a good man," Sarah said. "Anyone can see that." "But not everyone takes the time to see it." Rebecca's voice was thick with emotion. "At Sunnydale, he's just another resident. They're nice to him. They take care of him, but they don't really see him. Not the way you do." "That's not true. I'm sure they—" "Sarah, I visit him 3 times a week. I see how they treat him. Like a patient, not a person. But here," she gestured toward the house, "here he's Grandpa Henry. Here he matters." Sarah didn't know what to say. So she just reached over and squeezed Rebecca's hand. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood. Kids playing basketball down the street, a dog barking, a car driving past. "Can I tell you something?" Rebecca said finally. "Something I haven't told anyone." "Of course." Rebecca took a breath. "I had a daughter, Emily. She died when she was 16. Sarah's heart stopped. "Oh, Rebecca." I'm so sorry. It was 8 years ago. A drunk driver hit her while she was walking home from school. She died instantly. Rebecca's voice was steady, but Sarah could see her hands trembling. After that, I threw myself into work, built the company bigger and bigger. I told myself it was what Emily would have wanted, but really I was just trying to fill the void. I can't imagine what that must have been like. It was like drowning, Rebecca said simply. Every day just trying to keep my head above water. And then Dad started showing symptoms of dementia, and I thought, this is it. This is going to break me. I'm going to lose him too, and I won't survive it. She looked at Sarah, but then he got lost that night. And he found you. And somehow, instead of losing him, I gained a family. You and Emma, you gave me something I thought I'd never have again. A reason to smile, a reason to feel hope. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. You gave me the same thing. Then we're even, Rebecca said, smiling through her own tears. No, Sarah said firmly. We're better than even. We're family. In April, James called Sarah into his office. Close the door, he said, and Sarah's stomach dropped. She sat down, her hands gripping the armrests of the chair. Relax, James said, noticing her tension. You're not in trouble. The opposite, actually. Okay, Sarah said, not relaxing at all. I'm retiring, James said. My wife and I are moving to Arizona. We've been planning it for years, and the time's finally right. Oh, congratulations. Thank you. James leaned back in his chair. Which means we need someone to take over my position as property manager. Sarah's heart started racing. Rebecca and I have discussed it, and we'd like to offer the job to you. Me. Sarah's voice came out as a squeak. Yes, you. The position pays $58,000 a year plus bonuses based on performance. You'd be managing a team of 8 people overseeing all property operations, interfacing directly with major clients. James, I've only been here 6 months. I can't. Yes, you can. James interrupted gently. Sarah, do you know what I do all day? I coordinate schedules, manage problems, keep clients happy, and make sure the team works well together. You already do all of that. You've been doing it for months. But managing people, leading a team, I don't have experience with that. Neither did I when I started. Nobody does. You learn by doing it. James pulled out a folder. Here's the job description. Take the weekend to think about it. But I want you to know something. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've trained a lot of people, and you're the first person I've ever felt 100% confident recommending for my replacement. Sarah took the folder with shaking hands. That night, she sat at her kitchen table with the job description spread out in front of her. Emma was asleep. The house was quiet, and Sarah felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. $58,000 a year. That was more money than she'd ever imagined making. That was enough to move to a better neighborhood, enough to give Emma everything she needed and more. But it also meant more responsibility, more pressure, more opportunities to fail. Her phone rang. Rebecca. James told me he offered you the job, Rebecca said without preamble. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I'm terrified. Good. That means you understand the responsibility. Rebecca, I'm not qualified for this. I dropped out of college. I've been working retail and food service my whole adult life. I don't know how to manage people. You manage Emma, don't you? That's different. Not as different as you think. Managing people is about listening, guiding, supporting, and holding them accountable. You already do all of that. Rebecca paused. Sarah, let me ask you something. When you opened your door for my father that night, were you qualified to help him? No, but you did it anyway. You figured it out. You made it work. And you saved his life. Rebecca's voice softened. This is the same thing. You're not qualified on paper, but you have something more important than qualifications. You have character. You have integrity. You have the ability to care about people while still getting the job done. What if I fail? Then you'll learn and try again. That's what we all do. Rebecca, let that sit for a moment, but I don't think you'll fail. And more importantly, I trust you. My father trusts you. James trusts you. The team trusts you. The only person who doesn't trust you is you. After they hung up, Sarah sat for a long time in the silence. She thought about 4 years ago, living in her car for 2 weeks after the landlord evicted her, working 3 jobs and still not having enough money for both food and rent, watching Emma cry because she was hungry and Sarah had nothing to give her. She thought about that version of herself, broken, desperate, hopeless. And she thought about who she was now, strong, capable, building a life. The scared part of her wanted to say no, wanted to stay small and safe and avoid the risk of failure. But there was another part of her too, the part that had opened the door for Henry, the part that had taken a chance on a job she wasn't qualified for, the part that had been brave even when she was terrified. That part of her knew what to do. She picked up her phone and texted James, "I accept. Thank you for believing in me." His response came immediately. "You've earned this. Congratulations, boss." Boss. Sarah stared at that word for a long time. Then she smiled. Sarah's first day as property manager felt like walking onto a stage without knowing her lines. She stood in the conference room at 9:00 a.m., facing her new team. 8 people all looking at her with expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. 3 of them had been with the company longer than she'd been alive. Her hands were shaking, her mouth was dry, but she'd prepared what she wanted to say. "Good morning." She began, her voice only slightly unsteady. "I'm sure you all know by now that James has retired, and I've been asked to take over as property manager." She paused, looking at each person. "I know what some of you are thinking. I've only been here 6 months. I don't have formal education in property management. I've never managed people before." And you're right about all of that. She could see surprise on some faces. This wasn't the typical manager speech. "But here's what I do have." Sarah continued, her voice strengthening. "I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to work 2 jobs and still not have enough. I know what it's like to be so tired you can't think straight, but you keep going anyway because you have to. Because people are counting on you." She looked directly at Marcus, the most senior coordinator who'd been with the company for 12 years. "I understand that some of you might be frustrated. You've been here longer. You know more. You've earned a shot at this position." Marcus's expression shifted, slightly surprise, replacing skepticism. "And you're right," Sarah said. "But Rebecca chose me anyway. Not because I'm the most experienced or the most educated, but because she believes I can do this job. And more than that, because she believes I'll do it in a way that honors everyone on this team." She took a breath. "So here's my promise to you. I will work harder than anyone in this room. I will listen to your ideas because you know things I don't. I will support you when things get tough. I will advocate for you to upper management, and I will never ever forget what it's like to feel undervalued or overlooked." The room was silent. "I don't know everything," Sarah admitted, "but I'm willing to learn. And I hope you'll teach me, because we're not just a team. We're a family, and families support each other." After the meeting, Marcus approached her. "That was not what I expected," he said. Sarah's stomach tightened. "In a good way or a bad way?" "A good way." He extended his hand. "I've been here 12 years. I've had 4 different managers, and you're the first one who's ever admitted they don't know everything." Sarah shook his hand, relief flooding through her. "I figure honesty is better than pretending." "It is," Marcus smiled. "And for what it's worth, I think you're going to do a great job." "Thank you. That means a lot. Just one piece of advice. Please, trust your instincts. You got this job because Rebecca saw something in you. So stop second-guessing yourself and just do the work." Over the next few weeks, Sarah settled into her new role. It was challenging in ways she hadn't expected, managing personalities, mediating conflicts, making decisions that affected people's workloads and livelihoods. But she also discovered she was good at it. When Teresa and David had a disagreement about how to handle a difficult tenant, Sarah listened to both sides and found a compromise that satisfied everyone. When the team was struggling to meet a deadline, Sarah rolled up her sleeves and worked alongside them until midnight to get it done. When Marcus's mother had a heart attack and he needed time off, Sarah covered his workload without complaint. The team noticed. They respected her because she didn't just tell them what to do. She showed them how to do it, and she did it with them. In June, Rebecca called Sarah into her office. "Close the door," she said, and Sarah smiled. She wasn't scared of that phrase anymore. "What's up?" Rebecca slid a report across the desk. "These are your 3-month performance metrics. Client satisfaction is up 18%. Team productivity is up 22%. We've brought in 4 new major accounts since you took over." Sarah stared at the numbers. "That can't be right." "It's right. Sarah, you're doing incredible work. It's not just me. The team. The team is following your lead. You're a natural leader, Sarah. You make people want to do better." Rebecca leaned forward. "Which is why I want to talk to you about the future." "Okay. Carter Holdings is expanding. We're opening a second office in Seattle, and we're looking to grow our Portland operations significantly over the next 2 years." Rebecca's eyes gleamed. I need someone I can trust to help me build this company, someone who understands what it takes to succeed from the ground up, someone who cares about people as much as profits. Sarah's heart started pounding. Rebecca, what are you saying? I'm saying that in 2 years, maybe 3, I want you to be director of operations, overseeing all property management, coordinating between offices, helping shape the direction of the entire company. That's huge. It is. And it comes with a salary to match. We're talking $75,000 to $80,000 a year, plus significant bonuses and profit sharing. Sarah couldn't breathe. $75,000. That was more money than her parents had ever made combined. I know it's a lot to think about, Rebecca said, and we're not there yet. You still have learning and growing to do, but I want you to know where I see this going. I want you to see it too, because Sarah, you're not just an employee to me. You're family, and I want to build this company with family. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Say you'll keep working hard. Say you'll keep believing in yourself the way I believe in you. I will, Sarah promised. All of it. That Sunday, when Henry and Rebecca came over for their weekly visit, Sarah told them about the promotion opportunity. Director of Operations. Henry repeated, his eyes bright, despite the confusion that usually clouded them. That's very important, isn't it? Very important, Dad, Rebecca confirmed. Well, of course Sarah can do it, Henry said matter-of-factly. She's the smartest, kindest, hardest-working person I know, except for my Margaret, of course, and Rebecca, and Emma. He counted on his fingers, smiling. Actually, I'm surrounded by exceptional women. Emma giggled. Grandpa Henry, you're silly. Silly but right, Henry said, pulling her into a hug. Later, while Emma and Henry were in the backyard looking at her garden, Rebecca and Sarah sat on the front porch with iced tea. He's getting worse, Rebecca said quietly. The doctor says we should probably move him to the memory care unit soon. Sarah's heart sank. I'm sorry. Me too. Rebecca stared at her glass. But you know what? These Sundays with you and Emma, these are the moments he seems most himself, most present, most happy. He's family, Sarah said simply. This is where he belongs. That's what I told the doctor, Rebecca said, her voice thick with emotion. I said, he has family who loves him, real family. Not just me, but people who care about him because of who he is, not because they have to. And the doctor said that kind of connection can slow the progression of dementia. That love and purpose matter more than medication sometimes. Sarah reached over and took Rebecca's hand. Then we'll keep loving him, for as long as we can. Thank you, Rebecca whispered, for everything, for being you. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Emma show Henry her flowers, watching him smile and nod, and engage with her in a way that defied his deteriorating memory. And Sarah thought about family, real family, the kind you choose, the kind that chooses you back. The kind that shows up on a freezing early October night and never leaves. September came with the gentle fade of summer into fall. Sarah had been at Carter Holdings for a full year now, and the transformation in her life felt almost surreal. She'd moved into a better apartment in August, 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, a bathroom where everything worked. Emma had her own room for the first time ever, decorated with the art supplies Henry had given her and new furniture they'd picked out together. The move itself had been emotional. As Sarah packed up their things from the old rental on Maple Street, she'd stood in the empty living room and remembered sleeping on the floor next to Henry, remembered the newspaper-stuffed windows, remembered the constant gnawing fear that had lived in her chest for years. Goodbye, she'd whispered to the empty house. Thank you for keeping us safe. Now, as she sat at her desk reviewing the quarterly reports, Sarah allowed herself a moment of pride. Her team had exceeded every goal. Client satisfaction was at an all-time high. They'd brought in 6 new major accounts in the last quarter alone. Her phone buzzed. Rebecca, can you come to my office? I need to discuss something with you. Sarah grabbed her notebook and headed upstairs. Rebecca's office door was open, but her expression was serious. Close the door, Rebecca said, and for the first time in months, Sarah felt a flutter of worry. She sat down. What's wrong? Rebecca pushed a folder across the desk. I went to the doctor last week. I've been having some pain, some fatigue. I thought it was just stress from the expansion. Sarah's chest tightened. And it's not stress. Rebecca's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. It's cancer, pancreatic, stage 4. The world seemed to tilt. Sarah gripped the arms of her chair. No, No, that can't be right. They must have made a mistake. They didn't. I got a second opinion. Same diagnosis. Rebecca's eyes were dry, but Sarah could see the fear behind them. They're giving me 6 months to a year. Maybe more with treatment, but the survival rate for stage 4 pancreatic cancer is… She trailed off. Don't, Sarah said, her voice breaking. Don't talk about survival rates. You're going to fight this. You're going to beat this. I am going to fight, Rebecca agreed, but I also need to be realistic. I need to plan for possibilities I don't want to think about. She pulled out another folder. This is why I called you here. I'm updating my will, my power of attorney, all of my legal documents. And I need to talk to you about Dad. Sarah's throat was too tight to speak. When I'm gone, Rebecca continued, and Sarah flinched at those words. Someone needs to take care of him. Someone who loves him. Someone he trusts. Someone who sees him as a person, not just a patient. Rebecca, don't… I want it to be you. Rebecca's voice was firm now. I want you to have legal guardianship of my father. I want you to make medical decisions for him. I want you to be his family when I can't be. Tears were streaming down Sarah's face. Of course I will. But you're not going anywhere. You're going to fight this and win. Maybe, Rebecca said softly. But if I don't, I need to know he'll be okay. And with you, I know he will be. She slid another document across the desk. This is my will. I'm leaving you 30% ownership of Carter Holdings. The rest goes to various charities, but the majority share goes to you. Rebecca, no. That's too much. I can't. Yes, you can. This company has been my life's work, Sarah, and I want it in the hands of someone who cares about people, not just profits. Someone who understands what it means to struggle. Someone who will treat employees with dignity and respect. Rebecca's voice broke. I want it to be you. Please. Sarah couldn't stop crying. This isn't fair. You have so much more to do, so much more life to live. I know. Rebecca wiped her own eyes. But this is the hand I've been dealt, and I'm going to play it the best I can. Which means making sure the people I love are taken care of when I'm gone. They sat together for a long time, both crying, both holding on to each other. Finally, Sarah asked, Does Henry know? Not yet. I'm going to tell him today. I wanted to tell you first. What can I do? How can I help? Just be here. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep taking care of Dad on Sundays. Keep running the team. Keep being you. Rebecca smiled through her tears. That's all I need. The next months were brutal. Rebecca started chemotherapy in October. The treatments made her violently ill, left her exhausted and weak. But she kept working as much as she could, kept fighting, kept pushing forward with a determination that broke Sarah's heart. Sarah took on more and more responsibility, managing not just her own team, but coordinating with other departments, sitting in on executive meetings, learning the broader business operations that Rebecca had always handled. Some days, Rebecca would come to the office for a few hours. Other days, Sarah would bring work to her house, and they'd sit together in Rebecca's living room, reviewing reports and making decisions. You're ready for this, Rebecca said one afternoon in November. She was thin now, her skin pale dark circles under her eyes, but her mind was still sharp. You don't need me anymore. Don't say that. It's true, and it's a good thing, Sarah. It means I did my job. She smiled weakly. I taught you everything I know. Now you're going to teach someone else. That's how it works. Henry sat with them that day, holding Rebecca's hand. His memory had deteriorated significantly over the past year. Most days, he didn't remember where he was or who people were, but he seemed to understand that his daughter was sick. You're going to be okay, sweetheart, he kept saying, patting her hand. You're the strongest person I know, just like your mother. Rebecca would smile and agree, even though they both knew the truth. Emma handled it with the simple clarity of childhood. When Sarah explained that Miss Rebecca was very sick, Emma's first question was, is she going to die? Sarah had wanted to lie to protect her daughter from the harsh reality, but she'd learned that children understood more than adults gave them credit for. Maybe, Sarah had said honestly, the doctors are trying to help her, but she's very sick. That's sad, Emma had said, tears welling in her eyes. I love Miss Rebecca. I know, baby. Me too. Can we do something to make her happy? Like what? Emma had thought for a moment. We could make her a book, with pictures and stories about all the good times we had together, so she can remember even if she's too sick to visit. They'd spent the next week creating it. Emma drew pictures of their Sunday dinners, their trips to the park, Henry teaching her to plant flowers. Sarah wrote captions and stories beside each drawing. They filled a whole notebook with memories. When they gave it to Rebecca in December, she'd cried so hard she couldn't speak. She'd just held the book to her chest and cried while Emma hugged her. "This is the most beautiful gift anyone's ever given me," Rebecca finally managed to say. "Thank you, sweet girl. I'll treasure this forever." "Even if forever isn't very long?" Emma had asked with the brutal honesty of a 7-year-old. "Especially then," Rebecca had whispered. Christmas came. Rebecca was in the hospital too weak to leave. Sarah and Emma spent Christmas morning with her, bringing gifts and decorations to make her room feel festive. Henry came too, though he was confused about where they were and why, but he knew his daughter was there, and that was enough. "Merry Christmas, Dad," Rebecca said, holding his hand. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." Henry's voice was vague, distant. "Is Margaret coming? She always makes such a lovely Christmas dinner." "Not this year, Dad, but Sarah's here. And Emma." Henry looked at them and smiled. "Oh, good. I like them. They're family, aren't they?" "Yes, Dad. They're family." On January 15th, Rebecca called Sarah at 3 a.m. "I need you to come to the hospital," she said, her voice weak. "Please hurry." Sarah left Emma with Mrs. Patterson and drove through the dark streets, her heart pounding. When she arrived, Rebecca was sitting up in bed, looking small and fragile against the white sheets. Henry was there too, sleeping in the chair beside her. "Hi," Rebecca said softly. "Hi." Sarah sat down on the edge of the bed and took her hand. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm dying," Rebecca said with a weak smile. "Because I am." "Don't." "Sarah, listen to me. I don't have much time left. Maybe a few days, maybe less. And there are things I need to say." Sarah's vision blurred with tears, but she nodded. "Thank you," Rebecca began, "for everything. For taking care of Dad that night. For being exactly who you are. For showing me that kindness and integrity still exist in this world. You did the same for me. Maybe we saved each other," Rebecca said. "I like to think so." She reached into the drawer beside her bed and pulled out an envelope. "This is for Emma. My lawyer has all the official documents, but this is just a letter for when she's older. So she knows how much she meant to me." Sarah took the envelope with shaking hands. "And this is for you." Rebecca pulled out a small jewelry box. Inside was a necklace with a simple silver pendant shaped like a door, to remind you that opening doors, even when you're scared, can change everything. Sarah couldn't speak. She just held the necklace and cried. "Take care of Dad," Rebecca whispered. "Love him the way you've been loving him. Let him be part of your family. That's all I ask." "I promise, I swear. And take care of yourself too. Build the company. Help people the way I tried to help you. Pay it forward. That's how we change the world, Sarah. One act of kindness at a time." They sat together for a long time, holding hands, not needing words. "I'm scared," Rebecca finally admitted. "I'm not ready to go. There's so much I still want to do." "I know," Sarah whispered. "I'm scared too. Will you stay with me tonight? I'm not going anywhere." Sarah climbed into the hospital bed beside Rebecca carefully, gently. They lay together like that two women who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, who'd become family, not through blood, but through choice. Henry woke up around dawn. He looked at them both, confusion clearing from his eyes for just a moment. "My girls," he said softly. "Both my girls together." "Hi, Dad," Rebecca said. "Hi, Mr. Henry," Sarah added. "This is nice," Henry said, smiling. "Margaret would like this. All of us together." He fell back asleep, and Rebecca squeezed Sarah's hand. "Thank you," she whispered one more time, "for being my family." Rebecca Carter died 3 days later on a Sunday morning with Sarah and Henry and Emma beside her. She went peacefully without pain, surrounded by the people she loved most. Sarah held her hand until the very end, whispering promises. Promises to take care of Henry. Promises to honor her legacy. Promises to never forget the gift she'd been given. When it was over, when the machine stopped beeping and the room fell silent, Sarah looked at Emma, who was crying quietly, and at Henry, who sat staring at his daughter's still face with an expression of profound confusion. "Where's Rebecca going?" he asked, his voice childlike. "She's sleeping, but where's she going?" "She's going to be with Margaret," Sarah said gently. "With your wife. They're going to be together now." Henry nodded slowly as if that made sense to him. "That's good. Margaret missed her. She'll be happy to see her again." At the funeral, Sarah spoke through her tears. Rebecca Carter believed in second chances, she said, looking out at the crowd of employees, clients, and friends. She believed in seeing potential in people who couldn't see it in themselves. She believed that kindness should be rewarded, not punished, that integrity mattered more than credentials, that people were always more important than profits. Her voice broke. She saved my life. She gave me a chance when no one else would. She taught me that success isn't about how much money you make or how high you climb. It's about how you treat people along the way. It's about the lives you touch and the love you leave behind. Sarah looked at Henry sitting in the front row with Emma holding his hand. Rebecca asked me to take care of her father. It's an honor I'll carry for the rest of my life, because that's what family does. And Rebecca taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who cares, who stays. After the funeral, Rebecca's lawyer read the will. Sarah inherited 30% ownership of Carter Holdings, making her the majority shareholder. The rest was split between various charities that Rebecca had supported over the years, and she inherited legal guardianship of Henry. "I'm not his daughter," Sarah told the lawyer, her voice hollow with grief. "I'm not even related to him." "You were the person Rebecca trusted most in the world," the lawyer replied gently. "That makes you family in the ways that matter most." That night, Sarah lay in bed, unable to sleep. The necklace Rebecca had given her, the door pendant, was around her neck. She held it between her fingers and thought about everything that had led to this moment. A knock at the door on a freezing late September night. A choice to help instead of hide. A job offer that changed everything. A friendship that became family. And now, a responsibility that felt both overwhelming and sacred. She thought about Rebecca's last words. "Pay it forward, that's how we change the world. One act of kindness at a time." Sarah closed her eyes and made a promise. She would honor Rebecca's memory. She would take care of Henry. She would run the company with the same values Rebecca had taught her. And she would help others the way Rebecca had helped her. Because that's what family did. And Sarah finally understood what it meant to have a family. 2 years after Rebecca's death, Sarah stood in the conference room of Carter Holdings, looking at the faces of 50 employees gathered for the quarterly meeting. 50 employees. The company had doubled in size under her leadership. She was 36 now, director of operations, just as Rebecca had envisioned, managing not just the Portland office, but coordinating with their new branch in Seattle and the satellite office they'd opened in Eugene. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice clear and confident. No more shaking hands, no more doubting herself. "I want to start by sharing some numbers that I think you'll be proud of." She clicked to the first slide. In the past 2 years, Carter Holdings has increased revenue by 42%. We've expanded from 25 employees to 50. We've opened 2 new locations. And most importantly, our employee satisfaction rating is 93%, the highest in our industry. There was applause. Sarah smiled. "But numbers aren't what matter most to me. What matters is how we achieved these numbers." She clicked to the next slide, which showed photos of their team. "We did it by treating people with dignity and respect, by offering fair wages and good benefits, by promoting from within whenever possible, by creating a workplace where people feel valued and heard." She paused. "Rebecca Carter built this company on those principles, and as long as I'm running it, we'll continue to honor her vision." More applause. Sarah saw Marcus, her former colleague, who now managed the Seattle office, give her a thumbs up from the back of the room. "Now I want to talk about something new," Sarah continued, "something I've been working on for the past year." She clicked to a new slide, the Rebecca Carter Fund. This is a scholarship and employment program for single mothers who are trying to get back on their feet, women who are working multiple jobs, struggling to make ends meet, trying to give their kids a better life. Her voice grew thick with emotion. "Women like I used to be." The room was completely silent. "The program works like this. We identify candidates who show promise, character, and work ethic. We bring them into our company in entry-level positions with full benefits and training. We provide childcare assistance, transportation help, and mentorship. We give them the same chance Rebecca gave me." She clicked to the next slide, showing 3 women's faces. These are our first 3 participants. Maria, who was working as a night cleaner while raising 2 kids alone. Jennifer, who was living in her car with her 3-year-old. And Keisha, who was 1 paycheck away from homelessness. Sarah's voice strengthened. All 3 of them are now property coordinators. All 3 have stable housing. All 3 are building careers, not just working jobs. And we're going to keep expanding this program until we've helped 100 women, then 200, then more. The applause was thunderous now. Sarah saw tears on many faces. Rebecca believed that kindness should be rewarded, Sarah said, that people deserve second chances. That success is meaningless if we don't use it to lift others up. She looked around the room. So let's keep building the company she envisioned. Let's keep changing lives. Let's keep proving that business can be profitable and compassionate at the same time. After the meeting, Marcus caught up with her in the hallway. "That was incredible," he said. "The Rebecca Carter Fund is going to change so many lives." "I hope so. That's the goal." "You know, when you first started, I wasn't sure about you," Marcus admitted. "I thought Rebecca was making a mistake hiring someone with no experience, but you've proven me so wrong. You're the best leader this company has ever had." "Thank you, Marcus. That means a lot. I mean it. Rebecca would be so proud of you." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "I hope so." At home that evening, Sarah found Emma in her room doing homework. She was 9 now, tall and confident, still kind and compassionate, but with a quiet strength that reminded Sarah of Rebecca. "How was your day, baby?" "Good. We learned about fractions in math. I hate fractions." Sarah laughed. "Most people do. Want some help?" "No, I got it. Mrs. Anderson explained it really well." Sarah sat on the edge of Emma's bed, watching her daughter work. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure." Emma looked up from her worksheet. "I announced the Rebecca Carter Fund today at work. It's officially launching next month." Emma's face lit up. "Really? That's so cool, Mom." "I was thinking about Miss Rebecca, about how much she would have loved this, about how proud she'd be." "She would be," Emma said matter-of-factly. "She's probably watching right now from heaven, smiling really big." "You think so?" "I know so. Miss Rebecca loved helping people. That was her favorite thing." Emma went back to her fractions, then looked up again. "Mom, when I grow up, I want to do what you do. Help people who need it. Make things better." Sarah's chest tightened with emotion. "You already do that, sweet girl. Every day." That Sunday, Sarah and Emma drove to Sunnydale Senior Living to visit Henry. He lived in the memory care unit, now his dementia having progressed to the point where he needed full-time supervision. But Sarah had worked out an arrangement with the facility. Every Sunday, she'd sign him out for the day and bring him home. They'd have dinner together just like they used to. Even if Henry didn't always remember who they were, he knew he was safe and loved. Today when they arrived, Henry was sitting in the common room staring out the window. "Hi, Mr. Henry," Sarah said, kneeling beside his chair. "It's Sarah and Emma. We're here to take you home for dinner." Henry looked at her blankly for a moment. Then his face brightened. "Margaret, you came to visit." Sarah's heart ached, but she smiled. Henry often thought she was his late wife now. The doctor said it was common in advanced dementia, the mind seeking comfort in familiar, beloved faces. "That's right. I came to visit, and I brought Emma." "Hello, Grandpa Henry," Emma said, taking his hand. Henry looked at her, confusion and recognition flickering across his face. You're my granddaughter, from when you were little." "That's right. I'm your granddaughter." They helped Henry to the car and drove to Sarah's house, the house she'd bought a year ago. 3 bedrooms, a real yard, a kitchen big enough to cook family dinners. Emma had her own room. Henry had his own room too, for the Sundays when he stayed over. Sarah had offered to bring Henry to live with them permanently, but his doctor said he needed the structured care that Sunnydale provided. Still, these Sunday visits gave him something that medicine couldn't: family. As they cooked dinner together, Sarah and Emma preparing the food, while Henry sat at the kitchen table offering vague but cheerful commentary, Sarah thought about how far they'd come. 3 years ago, she'd been terrified of every knock at the door. Now she had a home full of love and laughter. 3 years ago, she'd been working herself to exhaustion for barely enough to survive. Now she was running a company and helping others escape the same trap. 3 years ago, she'd been alone. Now she had family. After dinner, they sat in the living room. Henry dozed in the armchair while Emma showed Sarah her latest drawings. "This one is Miss Rebecca," Emma said, pointing to a picture of a woman with blonde hair and a big smile. "She's in heaven with Margaret and Emily." Sarah studied the drawing. Emma had drawn Rebecca standing between 2 other women, all of them holding hands, all of them smiling. "It's beautiful, baby. I want to give it to Grandpa Henry, so he can remember that Miss Rebecca's okay now, that she's not sick anymore." "That's very thoughtful." Emma carefully colored in the last details, then walked over to Henry and gently woke him. "Grandpa Henry, I made you something." Henry blinked awake, focusing on Emma's face. For a moment, his expression was perfectly clear. "Emma," he said. "My sweet Emma." "Hi, Grandpa. Look what I drew for you." Henry took the picture with shaking hands. He studied it for a long time, and Sarah saw tears well up in his eyes. "That's my Rebecca," he whispered. "And that's my Margaret. And that's—" He paused. "That's Emily, Rebecca's daughter, my granddaughter." Sarah froze. Henry hadn't mentioned Emily in months, hadn't seemed to remember she existed. "They're all together now," Emma said softly. "Miss Rebecca isn't sick anymore. She's with her family in heaven." Henry nodded, tears streaming down his weathered face. "She was so sad after Emily died, so broken. I worried she'd never be happy again." He looked at Emma. "But then she found you, and your mother, and she was happy again. You gave that to her." "We loved her," Emma said simply. "And she loved you." Henry carefully folded the picture and put it in his shirt pocket right over his heart. "Thank you for this sweet girl. I'll keep it with me always." Later, after they'd driven Henry back to Sunnydale and Emma was asleep, Sarah sat on her back porch with a cup of tea looking at the stars. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. All the struggles, all the fears, all the moments when she'd wanted to give up. She thought about that knock at the door 3 years ago, about the choice she'd made to open it instead of hiding. She thought about Rebecca, who'd seen potential in a broken, exhausted woman working 2 dead-end jobs. She thought about Henry, who'd given them love and purpose, and reminded them that family wasn't about blood. And she thought about Emma growing up in a world so different from the one Sarah had known, a world where she was safe and loved and free to dream big dreams. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened her notes app. She'd been writing in it lately, capturing memories and lessons she wanted to remember, thoughts she wanted to share someday. She typed, 3 years ago, a confused old man knocked on my door at 2 a.m. I almost didn't open it. I was scared of what helping him might cost me, scared of getting involved, scared of change. But I opened the door anyway, and that choice changed everything. It taught me that kindness isn't weakness, that helping someone doesn't make you vulnerable, it makes you strong, that the scariest doors often lead to the most beautiful places. Rebecca used to say that we change the world one act of kindness at a time. I didn't understand what she meant at first. I thought changing the world was about grand gestures and huge sacrifices. But now, I know better. We change the world by opening doors, by seeing people who feel invisible, by giving chances to people who feel hopeless, by choosing compassion over fear again and again and again. That's Rebecca's legacy. And that's what I'm building with the Rebecca Carter Fund, a door that stays open for people who need it, because everyone deserves someone to open the door for them. Everyone deserves a chance, and every act of kindness ripples outward in ways we can never predict or measure. Sarah put down her phone and looked at the door pendant around her neck, the last gift Rebecca had given her. "Thank you," she whispered to the stars, "for knocking on my door, for changing my life, for teaching me what it means to be family." The wind rustled through the trees in her backyard. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, life continuing its ordinary rhythms. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. Everything felt sacred, every moment a gift, because Sarah had learned the most important lesson of all, that opening yourself to kindness, both giving it and receiving it, was the bravest thing a person could do, and it was worth every risk. 5 years after that, a freezing, early October night, Sarah stood on a stage at the Portland Convention Center, addressing an audience of 300 business leaders and community organizers. "When Rebecca Carter hired me," she said into the microphone, "I was 32 years old, working 2 jobs, raising a daughter alone, and living 1 paycheck away from disaster. I had no formal education in business, no connections, no safety net. What I had was character, work ethic, and a willingness to try." She clicked to a photo of Rebecca. Rebecca saw that. She saw past my circumstances to my potential. She gave me a chance that changed my life. And then she taught me that success is meaningless if we don't use it to create opportunities for others. The next slide showed the logo of the Rebecca Carter Fund. In the past 2 years, the Rebecca Carter Fund has helped 68 women find stable employment, housing, and support. 68 women who were where I was 5 years ago, working themselves to exhaustion, terrified of every bill, wondering if they'd ever escape the cycle of poverty. Sarah's voice grew stronger. Today, I'm announcing the expansion of the Rebecca Carter Fund beyond Carter Holdings. We're creating a grant program that will provide funding to other companies who want to implement similar programs. We're building a network of businesses committed to hiring and supporting people who need second chances. The applause was deafening. "Because here's what I've learned," Sarah continued. Poverty isn't a personal failing. It's a systemic trap. And it takes more than hard work to escape. It takes opportunity. It takes someone believing in you. It takes someone opening a door and saying, "Come in. You're worth investing in." She clicked to a final slide, a photo of Sarah Emma Henry and Rebecca taken the Christmas before Rebecca got sick. All of them smiling, all of them together. "This is my family," Sarah said softly. "Not by blood, but by choice. We found each other through an act of kindness on a frozen night. And that kindness rippled outward, changing not just our lives, but the lives of everyone we've been able to help since." She looked out at the audience. "So here's my challenge to all of you: open a door. Take a chance on someone. See the potential in people that they can't see in themselves. Because you never know how one act of kindness might change everything." After the speech, dozens of people approached Sarah with questions about implementing similar programs in their companies. Business cards were exchanged, partnerships formed, seeds planted for more doors to open. Marcus, now the VP of Operations, pulled her aside. "That was brilliant. Rebecca would have been so proud." "I hope so. I know so." He paused. "Can I tell you something? When I first met you, I thought you were a charity case. Someone Rebecca was helping out of guilt or sentiment. I didn't think you belonged here." Sarah smiled. "I remember. You weren't exactly subtle about it." "I was wrong. So wrong." Marcus shook his head. "You didn't just fill Rebecca's shoes. You've exceeded everything she built. You've taken her vision and expanded it beyond what any of us imagined. I had a good teacher. You had a good heart. That's what mattered." That evening, Sarah drove to Sunnydale Senior Living. Henry had declined significantly in recent months. He was in his late 80s, now frail and confused most of the time. The doctor said he probably wouldn't make it through the winter. Sarah had been preparing herself for this, trying to accept the inevitable, but it still hurt. She found him in his room, asleep in his chair. The drawing Emma had made Rebecca and Margaret and Emily together in heaven was on his nightstand, carefully preserved in a frame. Sarah sat down beside him and took his hand. "Hi, Mr. Henry. It's Sarah." His eyes fluttered open. For a moment they were unfocused. Then they cleared just slightly. "Sarah," he murmured. "You came. I always come. I know. You're a good girl, always taking care of me. You took care of me too, Mr. Henry. You and Rebecca both." Henry smiled vaguely. "Rebecca, my daughter. She was special, wasn't she?" "Very special." "Is she here? I'd like to see her." Sarah's throat tightened. "No, Mr. Henry. She's not here right now." "Oh." He looked disappointed, but not distressed. "That's okay. I'll see her soon." "I know I will." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Henry dozed off again, his hand still in Sarah's. Sarah thought about how circular life was, how Henry had ended up on her doorstep that frozen night, confused and frightened and looking for family. And now she lay here holding his hand, being the family he needed. "Thank you," she whispered, "for getting lost that night, for finding me, for giving me a chance to be brave." Henry squeezed her hand in his sleep as if he'd heard her. Sarah stayed until visiting hours ended, just sitting with him, being present. Because that's what family did. They showed up. They stayed, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. 3 weeks later, on a quiet Sunday morning in December, Henry Carter passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 88 years old. Sarah and Emma were with him. They'd been planning to take him home for their Sunday dinner, but when they arrived, the nurse told them gently that he'd gone just an hour earlier. "He wasn't alone," the nurse said. "I was here." And he was smiling, like he was seeing someone he loved. At the memorial service, Sarah spoke one final time about the man who'd changed her life. "Henry Carter taught me that family isn't about blood or biology," she said, looking out at the small gathering of people from Sunnydale and Carter Holdings. "It's about who shows up, who cares, who stays, who opens their heart and says, 'You belong here with me.'" Her voice broke. "Henry showed up on my doorstep 5 years ago, and I could have turned him away. I almost did, but I opened the door instead, and he became my family, not because he had to be, but because we chose each other." Emma stood beside her, holding her hand, crying quietly. "Henry's last gift to me," Sarah continued, "was teaching me that even when our minds fail and our bodies weaken, love remains. Connection remains. Family remains." She wiped her eyes. "He might not have remembered my name at the end, but he knew I loved him, and that was enough." After the service, Sarah and Emma went to the cemetery where Henry was being buried next to Rebecca. Margaret was on Rebecca's other side, and a small marker for Emily was nearby, all of them together again. "Do you think they're happy now?" Emma asked, staring at the graves. She was 11 now, old enough to understand death, but young enough to still believe in something beyond it. "I think so," Sarah said. "I think they found each other again." "Good." Emma placed a drawing on Henry's grave, a picture of their family, all of them together, all of them smiling. "I'm going to miss him." "Me too, baby. So much." They stood there for a long time saying goodbye. 10 years after that, a freezing early October night, Sarah stood in her backyard watching Emma, now 17, help a group of younger kids plant a vegetable garden. "No like this," Emma was saying patiently, demonstrating how to make a proper well for tomato seedlings. "See, just like Grandpa Henry taught us." Sarah smiled, remembering. Henry had been gone for 5 years, but his lessons lived on. His kindness lived on. His love lived on. Emma had grown into an incredible young woman. Smart, compassionate, driven. She'd been accepted to 3 different colleges and was planning to study business management and social work. "I want to help people like you do, Mom," she'd said when discussing her major. "I want to create opportunities for people who need them." Now, watching her teach those children with such patience and care, Sarah felt her heart overflow with pride. The Rebecca Carter Fund had helped over 300 women in the past decade. The grant program had expanded to 43 companies across Oregon and Washington. The ripple effects were impossible to measure. Children who had stable homes, now women who'd gone back to school, families who'd broken the cycle of poverty. And it had all started with one knock at the door. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Board, meeting tomorrow at 9. Big news to share. She smiled. Marcus had become a true partner over the years, helping expand the company while maintaining Rebecca's core values. Together, they'd grown Carter Holdings into one of the most respected property management firms in the Pacific Northwest. But they'd done it differently. They paid living wages. They provided excellent benefits. They promoted from within. They treated employees like family. And they were profitable. Incredibly profitable. Because it turned out that when you treated people well, they worked harder. They stayed longer. They cared more. They built something worth protecting. Rebecca had known that. She'd built her company on that principle. And Sarah had honored it, expanded it, proven it true, again and again. "Mom," Emma called. "Come help us. We need an adult to reach the top shelf in the shed." Sarah laughed and walked over. "What do you need?" "The watering cans. I can't quite reach them." Sarah pulled down the watering cans and watched as Emma distributed them to the kids, explaining how much water each plant needed. She was such a natural teacher, such a natural leader, just like Rebecca had been. That night, after the kids had gone home and Emma was upstairs studying, Sarah sat on her back porch with a glass of wine watching the sunset. She thought about the 10-year journey, about everything she'd gained and everything she'd lost, about the family she'd found and the family she'd had to say goodbye to. She thought about that knock at the door, about the split-second decision that had changed everything. And she thought about all the doors that had opened since. Doors of opportunity, doors of friendship, doors of belonging, doors of purpose, all because she'd been brave enough to open one door on one frozen night. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened her notes app where she still wrote occasionally. She scrolled through the entries, memories, lessons, thoughts she wanted to preserve. She added a new one 10 years ago tonight. "A confused old man knocked on my door. I was terrified, exhausted, barely surviving. I almost didn't open it, but I did. And that moment of courage, because that's what it was, courage even though it felt like fear, changed everything. Henry and Rebecca are gone now, but their legacy lives on. In the company they built, in the fund that bears Rebecca's name, in the hundreds of lives we've changed, in the lessons they taught me about kindness and family and love. I'm 42 years old now. I run a successful company. I'm raising an incredible daughter. I have a home and stability and purpose. I have everything I never thought I'd have. But the most important thing I have is the knowledge that one person, one choice, one act of kindness can change everything. Not just for you, but for everyone your life touches afterward. That's the real legacy. Not the money or the success or the recognition, but the ripple, the ever-expanding circle of kindness that started with a knock at a door. So I'm writing this down as a reminder to myself and anyone who might read it someday. Open the door, even when you're scared. Especially when you're scared. Open the door when someone needs help. Open the door when opportunity knocks. Open the door to love, to change, to possibility, because you never know what's on the other side. You never know how one moment of bravery might transform your entire life. And if you're very, very lucky, you might get to transform someone else's life too. That's what Rebecca and Henry gave me. The courage to keep opening doors, the wisdom to help others do the same. And now, every day, I get to pass that gift forward. Every woman we hire through the Rebecca Carter Fund is another door opening. Every family we help is another life changed. Every act of kindness is another ripple spreading outward. This is how we change the world. Not through grand gestures or heroic acts, but through small choices made with big hearts. Through seeing people who feel invisible. Through helping people who feel hopeless. Through opening doors that others keep locked. 10 years ago, I opened a door, and I've been opening doors ever since. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Rebecca, for teaching me what really matters. For showing me that the bravest thing we can do is choose kindness even when it costs us something, especially when it costs us something, because that's when it matters most. Sarah put down her phone and touched the door pendant around her neck, the necklace Rebecca had given her that she never took off. "I'm still opening doors," she whispered to the darkening sky, "just like you taught me." The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, she heard Emma's laughter through the open window upstairs, and Sarah smiled, because she'd learned the greatest truth of all, that opening one door could lead to 1,000 more. That one act of kindness could change not just one life, but hundreds. That family wasn't about blood or obligation, but about choice and love and showing up. And that the scariest moments, the moments when every instinct screamed to protect yourself, to stay safe, to hide, those were often the moments that mattered most. Those were the moments that defined who you were. Those were the moments when you chose either fear or courage. Sarah had chosen courage on a frozen and early October night 10 years ago, and she would choose it again and again every day for the rest of her life, because that's what Rebecca had taught her. That's what Henry had shown her. That's what love required. Not perfection, not certainty, not safety, just courage. Just the willingness to open the door, even at 2 a.m., even when you're afraid, especially then. That's when it mattered most. That's when it changed everything.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.